So, welcome to a special edition of the IFBTA broadcast today. And we're going to have a conversation, uh, a special conversation, because I do these all the time, but we never seem to do them on the air. So, we're going to do it today. And we're going to highlight Comcast Business, who is a global industry partner and has been almost since the very beginning of the IFBTA. And I'm really pleased to have joined me in conversation David Johnson, and he is the Senior Director of Enterprise Sales for Restaurant Technology. So, welcome.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me, Rob. I appreciate it. Appreciate having the conversation. And like you said, normally you and I have these one-on-ones, but this is the first kind of session where we've done it in this manner. So looking forward to it.
Well, what I always learn when we talk, and by the way, I'm going to guess you're going to tell me the same thing I'm about to say, is
Okay.
it just constantly seems like Comcast is just growing in so many areas, not just all in the US and everything else. And I'm not so sure that people actually understand what Comcast Business, how broad it is in the industry and the types of things we're doing. So I thought maybe we would start there.
Sure. I mean, and I'm glad you kind of positioned it that way because we have been a growing organization by leaps and bounds, not only here in the U.S. with acquisitions of Nitel, but some of the things that we've done in the past with Masergy to kind of give us more of an international presence. So at the end of the day, what we do is we provide large, robust, agile networks for the enterprise space. Now, that's a mouthful, I get it, but it kind of shows our dedication, not only from a sales perspective, marketing, project management, and so forth, where we're dedicated to providing these enterprise carrier type solutions to the marketplace.
So before we drill down on it, since I'm going to be listening very carefully to every word that you say, so when we talk about, you gave a lot of different things in a big scale here, but you also did say enterprise. People have different definitions of what enterprise is. I'm not sure anybody actually agrees. So
Mhm.
you are doing work also with small to medium businesses
Right.
as well. But how does that work? Because Comcast Business is all over, North America. And how does that work? Because you provide these solutions from small all the way up.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, and our SMB market is an integral part of our business. Working in the larger, major metropolitan areas where we have footprint, and they'll continue to, work on the local businesses, local enterprise solutions. And when I say enterprise, and that's a good point there. Where is the difference? From a Comcast business perspective, when we look at the enterprise solutions that we do on the vertical side, so myself and food and beverage, we've got a hospitality counterpart of mine that works in the hospitality space, the C-store space, the retail space, the banking and finance and media space. So what we're actually focused on is working with those large enterprise multi-site organizations that are across the US and even now globally where they're going to need services. So whether that's managed services, whether that's connectivity, whether that's business continuity with our backup solutions, all of that in one, and then it allows us to manage it from an enterprise perspective.
Well, I would point out that the IFBTA, as small as we are, is also a Comcast Business customer. And when I take a look at that, even though you're in the area of working with the large scale solutions and people who are even multinational, multi unit, multi state, multi this, multi that, franchise, franchisor, while you're providing those solutions, I can also, as a small to medium business, and many of our members are also small to medium businesses, I can also purchase these services. I just purchase them through the local channel.
That's correct. Yeah, you could obviously you always have that ability, to secure your Comcast services, whether it's through an SMB channel or whether it's through our large enterprise space as well. So we try to tailor it based on the customer's needs.
So the only reason I want to point this out is because we're now going to talk about the services themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about, you should tune us out if you are thinking to yourself, well, they're only doing the big guys, because whatever we're about to talk about are things that are really available throughout, your channel. It's just the channel of how they get to it. So um, let's go ahead and define, the type of managed services, sort of the scope. What are the types of managed services? If you sit next to somebody on a plane, or you go in and you give them the initial introduction,
Mm-hmm.
what are we talking about?
So what that could be managed Wi-Fi, it could be managed internet, it could be business continuity from a secure background perspective. Your SD-WAN management, anything that's going to manage, and in my case, the back of the house of that restaurant, we're going to come in and provide a complete end-to-end managed solution services.
So you're really sort of the central hub. You're secure because we know that everything is going outside the four walls today. But you're
Mhm.
that point right there that they need to go through. So it's secured. You're managing that. You're giving them secure, access, high bandwidth. But you also then have to connect inside the four walls. So that must mean partnerships or other products and things that you bring to the table.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, obviously we've got a larger partnerships, namely Meraki, Cisco, Aruba, Fortinet, um, you know, Juniper, multiple partners. And what we try to do is, we're hardware agnostic. So what we try to do is we come in, we'll have a capabilities meeting with the IT department, and in many cases now we're adding marketing and some of the other organizations that deal with loyalty programs and so forth. And we then have a
Yeah,
business
because of data
conversation.
security, right?
Oh, and security, yeah, because we want to, we've got some, from a food and beverage perspective, that they want to mandate a certain product, and that's fine. But some organizations want to have best in class hardware, software solutions based on what they're trying to accomplish in the marketplace. So we may
Yeah.
have a mix of that in a particular customer environment.
And I bet you walk into all kinds of different customer environments. I know this isn't your first time in hospitality because you have a
Mhm.
background in hospitality, but you're working with the restaurant segment right now. But clearly we also are in an environment that is changing over time, and we have franchisees and we have growing organizations that you have two units, and all of a sudden they're selling franchises, they're going international.
Right.
So when you take a look at that, there's a lot of challenges in the industry. And what you're doing is taking a really big thing off the table and saying, let's go ahead and have a single place that's going to bring these things together as you focus on running your business.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, whether you're making the best in class chicken sandwich, the best in class burger, or French fries, milkshake, or what have you, ice cream, that's your core business, and that's what the franchisee owner. That's why he went ahead and obtained several franchisees to go ahead and provide that level of service and food service to the community. What we want to do is allow that franchisee to operate in what he does best and allow us to manage that network. And I think what we also provide is we provide the ability to work directly with the corporate restaurants as well as the franchisee through our franchisee acceleration and adoption program.
And that gives corporate a lot of comfort because they
Right.
know that there's certain consistency and that they're putting their brand out there, and it's really out there. And what the franchisees do, you're protecting them, you're protecting the brand.
Exactly.
So I just all of a sudden, as you were talking, now the only words you didn't use were like end to end, but
Right.
in here, but I'm thinking about this and I'm picturing your next marketing campaign because you're in restaurants. I'm picturing you have a hamburger, and you know how they do those hamburger build up things and they put the stuff in it? It
Right.
could be the top of the bun and the bottom of the bun. You're the base and the platform, but also you're the end result that's customer facing that's in there. And what goes in between are all those applications, all those partners and things that they're doing. So I'm sort of picturing an ad here in the future that sort of shows that you can't build without a strong, secure base, and you can't top it off also without a strong, secure base because your customer faces.
You know what? I kind of like that analogy, Rob. When you look at that as the base of the hamburger, so we're that bottom portion of the bun. But then I think also we can then come back in if we look at it and with lettuce and tomatoes and things like that are added with our Comcast ecosystem that far outreaches anything we do from a connectivity perspective, but also provides value to the restaurant.
Well, it's funny because you use the word ecosystem, and I got to tell you, I had my eyes opened. It was 2 years ago at the NRF show. You guys had this big chart, and you were working with somebody in your ecosystem within your family with Machine Q, but they were
Mhm.
showing all the points of connection within the restaurant as if it was like a city, right?
Mhm.
And then you had all the points outside of it. And
Right.
it was such a great visual that showed how it went together. But you're in restaurants, so I think we need to do something with the visual here that really shows how it's really put together, right? Which
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm thinking this thing out. So I may be on ChatGPT later on today,
Oh,
playing
there
around
you
with
go.
some
See what
right?
creative we can come up with. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you a delivery. But okay, so there is a certain sense of security. There's a certain thing, but there's a lot of trends and things out there. The other thing I've learned about working both with you and the Comcast Business Group, not only in this vertical but the other verticals, which are very tightly aligned, is you guys are also making investments in your forward thinking. And we're in the budget time. People are thinking about 26 right now.
Mhm.
What are the trends or things that A, you think people are thinking about, and B, the ones that they're not thinking about that you're either picking up from your peers or your customers that maybe they should be?
Well, I think they're definitely obviously thinking about automation, AI automation and what that can actually do for them in the restaurant space. I think they're looking at obviously what they can do in terms of digital orders, because I think that's a huge part of what they're, especially within the QSR space. But I think what you're going to start seeing, and I think some of the restaurants should start looking at that, this is more like theme dining. Like, what theme, what can you do? What can you put out? What can you market to bring that consumer back to your restaurant? Is it a certain theme? Does it involve around sports? And I think that's where we come in with, obviously, with NBC, and we look at some of the things we do from an ecosystem perspective there with the, recent NBA into the fold. So there's a lot of possibilities that I think we can bring to the table.
What exactly do you mean by theme dining though? Are you talking about bringing it within your four walls or taking your four walls and putting them in other venues or both?
So a little bit of both, but I'm thinking your four walls. You have you've got a fast casual, fine dining, whatever. What theme could you bring in that brings people in there? And I don't know if it has to be like, I know there's some brands that will do a jazz night. That's a theme that comes in. People look forward to that. If it's jazz night around their happy hour, people look forward to coming in and listening to some music and so forth. But maybe you take it a step further, like we just recently had Halloween. You can come up with a theme then. I think theme dining and providing an experience is something that I would say a lot of our restaurateurs should look at.
And I think if we take the word digital and we add it in there, so much. Look, I went out, trick or treating, and I got
Mhm.
to tell you, there was a lot of digital stuff out there that people were doing in
Right.
their houses and things. If you think about how digital plays into that experience, whether it's inside the four walls, whether it's the ordering process,
Hmm.
and a lot of it is bandwidth as well.
Right.
That to be able to turn a theme on in a moment's notice, you really speed, right? You really have to be able to do that. So how do you see that impacting what you're going to deliver going forward? If they say you're right and they want to do that, then what's the connection point with Comcast Business?
Well, the connection point there is fairly simple. Obviously, we'll do a due diligence and we'll look at that back of house to make sure there is enough bandwidth, make sure everything is secured, make sure we can provide the best in class digital transformation of that network to take on some of those AI applications, to take on some of the things they may be doing from a digital perspective, and make sure that background or network is where it should be.
When people started moving their applications to the cloud,
Hmm.
one of the first things that they did was they all talked about, your connectivity. And they were always dealing with people who said, for $29, I can go down the street and go get a subscription. And I think they were underestimating it because not only the number of applications went that way, but then the customers need to be connected. So, do you have a prediction? Because I listen to these ads all the time about the bandwidth that's needed for AI. If
Hmm.
everything is adding all those transaction layers and AI is existing outside, now it's not just credit cards, it's not just music, it's not just, the trans. So is there going to be a next generation, a next step investment that's needed here because of bandwidth?
Well, I think so. And I think what you also have to do is start, restaurants have to start looking at the data. Because if we, as you know, we go back 6, 7, 8 years ago, there were, three, four devices connecting into the network. Who knows what that could be now? And you brought up a good point about customers coming in and want to have access as well. So I think, once again, another ecosystem partner that we have called DataB that allows us to give you a 360 view of the network to determine what that data is doing.
Is it what it's doing, but or is it also forecasting what you might need?
Yeah, a little bit of both. What it's doing and what you're forecasting for in the future, I think is important. So I think the analytics that we get from this data is just top notch. That's going to shape what applications we want to put on the network.
Well, we start talking about, so you've just brought up one of the investments, one of the partners that you have in there.
Mhm.
What are the other types of partners and investments that you have made that actually fall within, the Comcast business family or the extended family, but when you go out and you have a portfolio of solutions, what are those solutions?
So within Comcast, we've got a group called Smart Solutions. So Smart Solutions is tasked with not only from a food and beverage perspective, but to go out and look at best in class solutions through all the major verticals. So whether it's a best in class kiosk solution, maybe it's language translation, maybe it's digital menu boards. So those are the things, or those are the conversations that we will bring as a part
Voice,
of our
voice
capability.
ordering, voice, capability, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So you represent a vertical and you have, your counterparts represent their verticals.
Right.
So how do you get them to be part of that conversation, and how do you get them to engage? Because they know that you're going to be making investment, they're making investment as well. So how do you partner with people? What's that relationship look like?
Well, the thing is, obviously, what we want to do, and we manage and we support 16 of the top 20 QSRs, probably 10 of the top 20 in the fast casual fine dining scenarios. But we also have a mandate where we want to find the next group of restaurants, not necessarily an amount, but maybe looking at their growth trajectory across the next 5 years. Bring them in from a technology perspective, almost like an incubator, and show them how to grow technology wise as they add on some of these applications.
So I'm thinking about a couple things you just brought up. So we've got the burger already, right? We got the bun and we got the top. So I'm now
Right.
thinking about, you must have, because you brought it up, Comcast must have access to a lot of data. And we're not talking about private data. I'm talking about
Mhm.
seeing how transactions run, what bandwidth is. If you add this type of application to your unit, what does that do, right? And
Mhm.
you brought up loyalty before and working with other departments. I'm sort of wondering, with the data analytics that you're doing, you
Mhm.
know, uh, maybe there's some forward thinking studies or information that could be provided to the industry based upon looking at that and saying, hey, if you're going to add this, this is what you should expect. And this is
Mhm.
the engagement. And this is the transactions back and forth.
Well, one of the things, and that's a good point, Rob. One of the things we're starting to do now is, as opposed to just going in, engaging with the customer, coming in and just saying, okay, this is your current environment. Here's what we suggest. We're coming in doing a full, complete network analysis. So we're looking at that network from top to bottom. And then what we do then is, based on our research and our analysis and what we see trend wise, we're coming back to that customer with a, three solutions: good, better, and best solution that, depending upon their budget and their environment, that they can work with.
So
Um,
I'm going to guess that sometime, I mean, I know you've already said it, you work with the largest and the
mhm,
percentage in, let's say, the top 20 in
mhm,
any one of the restaurant segments. You're there, right? So
right.
I'm sort of guessing. I bet you there are aha moments that you guys get when you're talking to them, but I bet you there are aha moments they get when you take a look at those transactions and that data, and you sit there and you go, "Gee, you didn't know this, right? Or we didn't
Right.
know this." Are there some? You have to give me the brands, but are there some of those aha moments that you might be able to just sort of share at things that unexpected learnings?
Oh, definitely some aha moments, when people realize how much Wi-Fi is being used in their restaurant and they had no clue. I mean, that's an aha moment for the franchisee and even corporate, to just go, wow, I did not realize that. Or if they happen to go on 4G backup and just stayed on 4G backup, like, that's a cost to do that. So I think those are some of the moments where they're sitting back going, whoa, I did not realize the cost on that. But had we come in and did an analysis to kind of show these things, it would help with that.
Well, now I'm thinking about things that those aha moments, like the one you just mentioned, there's
Hmm.
a expense savings opportunity where you probably would bring them some solutions and say, if you do it this way, you do it that way. But I also think that if you're able to analyze what that traffic's being used for, there may be actually revenue enhancement because you really want to know what people are doing
That's true
using
too.
that bandwidth, right? So is that the kind of thing in a partnership, where you're working closely in a relationship with a customer, that you actually look at that together and say, we can save money this way. But on the other hand, what we're noticing are these trends or that traffic or these applications. And maybe there's a way to generate more business.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I won't name the customer, but I know one put in a solution from an IoT perspective, and it really was just to monitor paper towel. But it found out that not only was it monitoring how much paper towel was being used in a bathroom, but how much was getting thrown away. So it's like, okay, you're just replacing it because it says you should replace it every 2 or 3 hours, but essentially you're throwing out, paper towel that was already there. So I think,
Right. I got to assume, by the way, that it's some sort of intelligent roller or something. Nobody put a camera in the bathroom.
nah, yeah, no, not like that. It's an intelligent roller that's feeding it off there. Yeah, we're not going to do cameras in the bathroom or things like that for sure.
But people are looking at how they can use the existing camera networks they have to do visioning AI, right? And you're providing the bandwidth for that as well.
Oh,
They
for
are
sure.
looking at that. And you mentioned Meraki as a partner before. They have the cameras and things. So,
Mhm.
they must also be finding ways to take what they have already invested in and do more with it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that's the thing where we can kind of look at, you've already invested in cameras, you've already invested in certain technology. What can we do with that technology for you?
Well, so are there some things then? So you mentioned AI already, and you
Mhm.
mentioned bandwidth. You've said that people are using more and more, and there's more interaction. Are there some very specific messages or things that you want to make sure that people know about, as they think about what their investment is or what they may need to upgrade or do for next year?
Yeah, I would say you really want to think about, and I'm big on the customer experience, as you can probably tell with some of my comments. What is your end user looking for? What service, enhanced service, can you provide to that end user? And then look at it from a technology perspective to make sure you are providing what they need as they come into your establishment, whether it's fast drive through, whether it's a dine in experience. Any of those has to be taken into account.
So I'm now thinking about how to put you on the spot, given your background that came from hospitality and
Okay.
lodging and things like
Oh,
that.
I'm in
So
trouble now.
no, you're not, because I'm wondering that you would sometimes you would think people would know their customer, right? So there
Right.
are two ways that I think about when I look about bandwidth and technology and what people are doing. One is that you have, and I would figure that you get together with your counterparts from healthcare and C
Mhm.
store retail from time to time, and you actually talk about what are you seeing there, because what end users and customers and employees experience in those industries start getting passed around. Plus, we see partnerships like C stores and restaurants. But the other side of it is, I always used to say in the hotel industry, is people sit there and go, how come I have all these things available in my house, but I can't get it when I travel in my hotel room? Right.
Right.
So, are there some of those things that we better start thinking about that the consumers are doing or that the other industries are doing that you think are going to impact restaurants?
So I think to your point, we actually do, as a vertical team, we'll sit down and we talk about things that are similar from an application or use case perspective. And for me, coming from hospitality, food and beverage is very similar. It's the dining experience versus the guest experience. At the end of
There
the
is
day,
food and beverage in hospitality.
right? Yeah, very, very similar in terms of what they're looking at. So, to your question, is I think anything that we have in our home, we want to be able to travel with when we're in a hotel, but also provide that same level of connectivity when we're in a restaurant. We live in a society now where our mobile devices and connection is key. So we don't want to lose that for anyway. And if we look at generations wise, like I look at my kids, we go to a restaurant, first thing they say is, "What's the Wi-Fi password?" Because they need to get access. So anything you have in a home, you need to bring
And as soon as you give them access, whether it's they have to log on to it for the password or not, there's so much data available about that customer that
Right.
is, you don't have to exactly know who they are.
Hmm.
But I bet people underestimate the power of Comcast Business and the connectivity and all the connection points that you have down to the equipment level,
Right.
down connecting with the customer, including, by the way, the mobility side of Comcast that's
Right.
selling, Comcast, we shouldn't forget you have that,
That's
to the
true.
channels. And,
Right.
that's an awful lot of data and a lot of data points and that you could bring to bear and help your customers in restaurant with.
Yeah, and it's actually to your point. I'm glad you brought that up. There's marketing programs that we have in place now for our franchisees and our corporate relationships within the food and beverage vertical, where we will provide mobile or cellular solutions at a at a discounted price to directly to the franchisee. So just coming up with different programs.
Yeah, not just by the way for their employees, but also when you talk about backups, in remote locations and things like that, part of that falls under that backup solution as well. Just like I have it at my house, I've
Right.
got Storm Ready at my. I told you I'm all in here with you guys, so
Oh, I know you
you know
are.
I get it, but that's also the same thing. I don't know get it why restaurateurs don't always think that way, that they make decisions and have things in their home, but they don't put it in the restaurant. Yeah, I don't quite get that because boy, you better not go down at home, right? So
Well,
you
yeah,
have all that in a
I think it
portfolio.
has a lot to do with, hey, their core competency is, like I said, putting out that best in class meal. And you know what? We as Comcast, that's what they should do. We should come in and provide them with the metrics and the details on, okay, why increasing that bandwidth while making sure that network and back of the house is the way it should be. Here's what it's going to bring to you. Here's what it's going to save you. Here's what kind of customers you're going to generate and more revenue you're going to generate.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of different pieces. It's a connected world, and what I see is the value that you're bringing to the table is more than just, quite frankly, what you and your particular group is selling.
Oh,
Because
sure.
you are selling experience, you're connecting partners with each other. It's an awful lot of information you have to know about the industry, and your team has to know about the industry. I guess I should ask, how do they get all that information, right?
Well, a lot of it comes directly from you, Rob. IFBTA kind of understanding and looking at the trends, attending industry events where I think we learned a lot. We attend a lot of brand industry events where we participate. So we get a chance to sit back and listen to the franchisees, listen to the corporate representatives to kind of understand some of the things that they want in the marketplace.
Well, I think that there's an awful lot of pieces. So as we look at the future, you mentioned a couple times early on about, I don't know that people really understand the global nature of Comcast Business, that you actually have been expanding globally. And it isn't just because your customers are taking you there, but you now have, additional capability. Can you just talk about how you might, service or provide solutions to people who, in fact, do end up going global?
Oh yeah, and it's I won't say it's easy because anything you do from a global perspective is not easy. But we now have the back office stuff in our own home complete, where we can go out, we can take a look at a particular customer, do serviceability, and determine where we can provide network and services in a particular country. And we may not be in every country because I don't think anyone is, but we can at least provide different types of solutions
But you
for.
have partnerships actually to do that, right?
Yeah, we have partnerships in place that'll actually do that. If we're working on many, and my group is working on restaurants now that are customers here in the U.S. and are looking to expand globally. So we're taking a look country by country, and we're providing
Right.
solutions.
And what it really is about is the relationship.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, or I can't, think that you would not have a majority of the QSR, the casual, the fast casual, fine dining, or full service, space if you didn't have really great relationships, not just, sales, or supplier to operator, but relationships where you're working hand in hand with the customers. That means that if they're doing international, you're able to be that relationship manager as well, bringing the pieces together.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We try to bring a lot of things to our customers that have nothing to do, say, and I won't say nothing to do with Comcast, but it's not a Comcast product. So what we try to do is we want to help the restaurateur. We just recently partnered with a company called Giving Kitchen that provides financial support
I was going to
to,
ask you about the charitable things that you guys do, by the way.
yeah, I mean,
So
that
thank you for
one,
bringing it up.
yeah, that one to me is, they provide support to individuals that may work within a restaurant space that may fall on hard times. Maybe they've got an issue with paying their mortgage. Maybe they've had a health concern. Maybe they've had a death in the family. Well, that's what Giving Kitchen is there for. And many of our brands that we work with are partnering with Giving Kitchen because it finds a way to give back to the community that supports these restaurants. And then
Which, by the
obviously,
way, that is part of your culture. And if you look at the Xfinity side and you look at what they do with community centers and giving connectivity, it
mhm,
really goes alongside of. But what you're focused on here in Giving Kitchen, and maybe I should feel guilty. I don't have a hat on, right now for that.
right,
But
yeah, well,
like one of your main people does all the time, I see him,
yeah.
Brian. But what you're saying here is that you also recognize that the restaurant industry is a community, and you have to be able to help fuel and enable and help that community as well.
Well, yeah, we should. I mean, even prior to partnering with Giving Kitchen, we had our Comcast Rise program where we provide support within each of the metropolitan areas to local businesses and so forth. And we're going to continue to do that. We do a lot of co-marketing or co-branding of charitable work with each of our brands and some of our other customers, and that's just our way of that true partnership with that particular brand, not only from a technology perspective, but also from a charity perspective.
And before we wrap up, I just want to make sure that people understand that besides what we just talked about, community and connectivity and all the different industries and things like that, in itself, within the Comcast family, you guys are operators. And,
Hmm.
I went to Universal recently, and I don't know that people always say, sporting, events. And,
Hmm.
so at the same time, you almost have your own test scenarios to test things out and new technology and innovation because you have customers within your own company as
Right.
much as you do services that you offer.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what we have at Universal with our theme parks and so forth, that's almost like an incubator for technology that we manage. And many brands have their own restaurants, and hotels have their own restaurants directly within our Universal space. So we look at that. As you've seen, we offer tours. We're probably going to start offering brand type meetings at those facilities so this way they can come in and take a look at some of the technology that we have in place.
Yeah, I mean, you're not just I think back to a retailer who said, the educated consumer was their best customer, but
Right.
also you are your own customer as well. And so you get to, you know, go through it firsthand, try innovation yourself, but
Hmm.
also you can share that experience with many of your customers who are also partnered with you in other ventures.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, that's the best way to do it. And I've actually challenged my team. We're going to start doing this. I've had one of my reps already do this, where we've went into a particular brand and we've worked for a day. Number one, to get that restaurant experience from a worker perspective. And it's not just about fixing food and so forth. You're going to be using the technology, you're going to be looking at the digital orders, you're going to be doing all that. So everything that we market and sell, it sometimes is always good to do yourself so you can get a better understanding.
Well, everyone on your team is all, I'm sure they all eat. So I'm sure that they're all, consumers as well of
Yeah.
the brand. So you have to be there. Plus, I will tell you, and I appreciate, that the nice mention of the IFBTA and partnership, but also you were one of the first companies to step up and have all the people who are working within the industry segment take our certification program. And I thought that was great, just like you're talking about right now, sending them out to work in operations, to
Mhm.
really understand what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to understand the technology, and the best way to understand it is to use it. And having sales individuals, marketing, project manage individuals go through the IFBTA certification gave them an understanding of the industry. So I think it was important.
Well, normally we wrap up with the question of why the IFBTA. You've done a good job of doing that, so I don't need to do that today. But I do really want to thank you for sharing your insights, today, and also where your positioning is. I think this should be one of many conversations because there is so much depth in the solutions that Comcast Business and its family and then its extended family of partners can offer. But at the end of the day, you really are the base, the platform that people will build on or have to go through in order to really operate.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. As, as an organization, and I don't just speak for food and beverage, we all love what we do. We love supporting our customers and working with our customers through the good and bad times. So it's just a joy to kind of provide a service.
And we value being a customer and a partner, of Comcast Business. So, thank you for joining me today in a conversation, and Comcast Business of being a very valued global industry partner of the IFPTA. And I've been having a conversation with David Johnson, who is the senior industry director of enterprise in the restaurant industry, which he shared with us. And David, thank you so much. And I know we're going to have many more conversations coming up on and off the air.
Yep, Rob, look forward to it. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And go restaurants. We love supporting them. So thank you.
Go restaurants. There you go. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.